Presidential candidate Bobby Jindal going on the offensive today, taking on Donald Trump.
He is shallow. There is no substance. He doesn't know anything about policy. He has no idea what he's talking about. Donald Trump is for Donald Trump.
But apparently, no one told that to American voters because, well, here you go. Take a look at that. 30% in the polls and still climbing. But does this popularity last? Joining me right now on the seriousness of Donald Trump and his candidacy, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha. One of the things that Bobby Jindal said about Donald Trump is that he, quote, is not serious. He's not a serious person. He's not a serious candidate. Ford, your thoughts on that? I made the point earlier that you got to be somewhat serious to be able to build the empire he's built. What do you make of Bobby Jindal's comments?
Well, look, Jindal is polling at less than 1%. He's tried getting tough. He's tried putting out policy plans. And right now there's only one thing left to do, and that is try to catch on to the Trump machine. And right now we're in the personality phase of the campaign. And essentially, Jindal is doing the only thing he knows that's left to do, and that is go after Donald Trump. I do think Donald Trump is a serious candidate. But again, we are still in the personality phase, and a lot of voters are not looking at their sort of records, what their plans are, or how they would govern or their temperament. But they do like the fact that Trump has brass cojones.
Chuck, the Republican Party doesn't know what to do with this guy. That's quite clear. Now you got Jindal coming out swinging. Do we see more of that in the coming days, in the coming weeks, as people realize, maybe the only way to fight him is to take him on head on?
The only way you can get any press in this town is to talk about Donald Trump if you're not Donald Trump. It's a smart political play because, as you said with your reporter earlier, nobody's talked about Bobby Jindal until he took on Donald Trump. And now we're going to talk about Bobby Jindal. So when you're less than 1%, this is what you do to try to get a little attention. And as a good Democrat, I'm sitting back with my bucket of popcorn, and I am loving this sideshow and loving every minute of this. But I think that Bobby Jindal, as a political, no matter what party you belong to, it's a smart political move to try to get yourself back in the press.
Let's continue this conversation about Donald Trump here, because he did say something that might land him in hot water with some folks. But of course, he said a lot of things that would land him in hot water with a lot of folks. This is what he had to say on Carly Fiorina regarding her face. Look at that face. Would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that, the face of our next president? This is something that Rolling Stone magazine heard him saying when referring to Carly Fiorina. He did speak about it this morning on Fox and Friends. He addressed this comment head on. Listen to his response.
Probably I did say something like that about Carly. I'm talking about persona. I'm not talking about look, although when I get criticized for my hair, which isn't that bad, you've seen me, right? It's not that bad. But when I get criticized constantly by my hair, nobody does a story about, oh, isn't that terrible? They criticized Donald Trump's hair. But the fact is that I probably did say that about Carly, or something about, in a jocular manner, obviously.
Of course, Ford, I could imagine him saying something pretty bad about Chris Christie in sort of that manner as well. I mean, a lot of people are going to jump on this, Ford, and they're going to say, he went after her because she is a woman. Do you think that's really what was behind it, or is he an equal opportunist insulter?
I think he's an equal opportunity offender. Understand, there's telling it like it is, and then there's going out of bounds. He knew he went out of bounds, and that's why he pulled it back and was talking about persona. Understand what Donald Trump is trying to do here. He is trying to consolidate the outsider vote. There's three outsiders, Trump, Fiorina, and Carson. And right now, he's turned his fire away from the insiders in an effort to knock down the outsiders. And that's why after he talked about a persona, he went right after her record at Hewlett-Packard. He knew he stepped over the line. He's bringing it back in because he wants Fiorina and Carson's votes, because if he knows he can consolidate that vote, he's going to be pretty hard to stop.
It's really interesting. You talk about this strategy, and a lot of people, Chuck, have pointed out the guy doesn't really have a quote-unquote strategy. I mean, he's not employing a ton of you folks, and he's not employing a ton of people that are behind the scenes telling him you should think this way or that way, or the voters are going to respond to this or that. And yet, to hear you describe it, or at least Ford there, it is a strategy of sorts.
Breaking news. Politics may not be about policy. It's about politics and about persona. There's lots of things that go on in our world every day that me and Ford work on, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. When we're working with a candidate going, you got to be able to relate with people, no matter what your specific policy may be on point A, B, and C, and the subtext and blah, blah, blah. American people already tuned you out. They are sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's why you see Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump rising to the top, because people are looking for an alternative to the regular old.
You know, I wonder what effect the Carly Fiorina comment might have. He pretty much has proven he's Teflon, and I think that will hold. But you can imagine you got some people on the left just salivating at this because they're trying to paint the Republican Party as being anti-women. It's something that Hillary Clinton has embraced all along, and she, of course, had something to say regarding all of this. Ford, I'd like to get your
Trish,
reaction.
That's why he actually pulled it back, because he knows what will happen is once we get into the substance portion of the campaign, a lot of folks are going to say, do you have the temperament to take on Hillary Clinton, who's going to throw every zinger at you, and you're going to have to stay in bounds. So this was smart by Trump. This is not Rosie O'Donnell, okay, which all Republicans laugh at. This is a credible woman and the first Fortune 500 CEO, so you actually do have to respect her, and you cannot treat her just as another candidate in our primary.
Because as we know, the left will come out and use this against you. Watch what Hillary Clinton had to say, guys.
And there is one particular candidate who just seems to delight in insulting women every chance he gets. I have to say, if he emerges, I would love to debate him.
It'd be one interesting debate. That one might actually top previous debate records we've seen in terms of ratings.
It might top the Super Bowl, Trish.
You know, Chuck, how do you think she'd hold up in a debate against Donald Trump? Because he's so off the cuff and she's so by the book.
Like her, love her, hate her, she's been doing this a long time. I think she's a skilled politician. I think she'd be a skilled debater. I think it'd be really unique to see. Donald Trump has no vetting. What Donald Trump thinks, Donald Trump says. Every time you ask Hillary Clinton something, she's very controlled, she has her talking points, and she's a professional politician, and she's done a good job as far as I'm concerned. Seeing those two, I would buy my bucket of popcorn again and say, I couldn't wait for this, and as Ford just said, it would be the Super Bowls of all Super Bowls.
Bear with me for a minute. Theorize with me for a minute. Ford, if Donald Trump is successful throughout this process, if he becomes the Republican nominee, could you see Carly Fiorina by his side as VP? I mean, then you would have a woman that could effectively be that attack dog when it comes to dealing with Hillary Clinton?
Absolutely. Look, if Trump does become the nominee, I could see Carly Fiorina and Marco Rubio, because the two holes we have, thanks to the war on women, despise minorities, and hate the poor, is a deficit with unmarried women under 50 and Hispanics, and we have to find a way to close that loop in 7 battleground states. And if we can do that, guess what? We're going to take over the White House in 2017.
You know, she had a very interesting, and many have said, very, very good response to Donald Trump's attack on her, well, face. Here's what she said to Megyn Kelly last night. Watch this.
I'm not going to spend a single cycle wondering what Donald Trump means, but maybe, just maybe, I'm getting under his skin a little bit because I am climbing in the polls.
You think she is, Ford? Is she getting under his skin?
Well, she's getting under his skin because basically she's got an outsider vote and a story to tell. And frankly, by not saying anything against Donald Trump puts the ball back in his court. It allows him to wallow in his own cycle. And he wants to go forward. He doesn't want to go backwards. Smart move by Carly Fiorina.
Chuck, people are saying, some of them, that this is very much the early inning, that, you know, this is a long process. We're just in the very beginning of this election. And his popularity can't hold. Do you buy into that?
You know, I used to buy into it, but I don't buy into it anymore. None of us thought he would get into double digits, and nobody said we'd get to 20, and this morning he's at 31. I think that there are a growing group of people out there who want nothing to do with public policy, who are just tired, as I said earlier. And I think he's tapped into something real, and I think Bernie Sanders has as well, and I'll go back and reiterate that.
Will they vote? I mean, it's one thing to tap into a base that is fed up, but will they get to the polls?
People pay me money to figure out who will vote and who will not vote, and it's not a science. So if they have a motivating factor, if there's that one issue, that one thing, I think that they will vote. People never thought we would have an African-American president because they didn't think certain people would come vote, whether it was the youth and African-Americans, and they showed up. Is that determining force on the other side? That's yet to be seen.
Is it the economy? I mean, ultimately, Ford, people are fed up with the economic situation we've got ourselves in. All of a sudden, you got a guy who's coming along who's actually run a business, who's actually built a business, who's promising jobs, who's promising a return of American success. Is that going to be what gets people up off their couches and into the voting booths?
Well, it's two things. One, it is the economy. The other one is they're just sick and tired of politicians. And when Trump says, I'm going to build a 1,900-mile wall, whether or not he's actually going to do it, they believe it. He is giving them a reason to believe. And if he can consolidate that outsider vote and continue to play the mainstream media like a fiddle, guess what? His unfavorables, 2 months ago, he was trailing Hillary by 15 points. Now he's almost even with her. So anything can happen in Trump's world, but he has to be very careful about how he does this.
And I would go on to say, as far as Mitt Romney ran a lot of businesses, Carly Fiorina ran a lot of businesses, and they're nowhere near the Trump number. So I don't think it is a determining factor right now early on, but I think
the
it will be
apprentice is the determining factor. The apprentice and the personality is the determining factor right now. The question is whether or not Trump can take it a step further. But right now, he's hitting all the right notes, Trish.
It is personality. I mean, people want to like you. They want to believe in you. And he is, as you both said, giving some people hope. Chuck and Ford, thank you very much for all your analysis.